Hi, I am Emma Davidson, Fashion Features Director at dazeddigital.com. We're at Copenhagen Fashion Week, and I am joined by Ervin, Laird, Nora, and Bruce. First of all, it would be fab if you could all introduce yourselves and kind of tell us a little bit about what you do. So we'll start with you, Ervin.
I'm Ervin Latimer. I'm the creative director of Latimmier, and alongside fashion design, I also do some writing, lecturing, and consultancy.
Fab. And Laird?
I'm the senior archive editor at Vogue.com. I guess that means that I focus on putting fashion in context, and I also have a special beat in Scandinavia and been following the market for a long time. So super happy to be back.
Nora?
I'm Nora. I'm head of communications at RenewCell, and we're a textile recycling company. And we're producing a 100% recycled material called Circulose. And we're actually, Circulose is the partner of Copenhagen's new talent program that they're launching, where Ervin is part. So it's great to be here today.
Amazing.
And I'm Bruce Pask. I'm the men's fashion director of Bergdorf, Goodman, and Neiman Marcus. I'm really thrilled to be back here in Copenhagen. It's been a couple of years, but I've been to the show many, many times. I'm a particular fan, and I find the market incredibly exciting. So I'm really, really excited to be back here.
Fab, thank you. And so in a time when emerging designers are facing more challenges and hurdles than ever before due to rising costs, a global pandemic, many, many other factors, we're here to discuss how best the industry can bolster, support, and nurture rising talent. And since we only have 30 minutes, I'm going to get straight into it. So first of all, and this is to all of you, but let's start with Ervin. What are the biggest hurdles and challenges affecting designers today, and what are the opportunities that may not have been there previously?
Biggest challenges. Yeah, I wonder if I can speak for all young designers. If I should just speak just for myself. I mean, resources are a challenge. It's really, really difficult to, if you want to meet demands of sustainability, if you want to meet demands of social responsibility, good design, etc., it requires resources. So even if you have, great ideas, etc., you can't do that without, connections and resources. That's why the new talent program is so vital and so important, and I'm so happy to be a part of that. I think maybe some of the opportunities that are there now that haven't been before, obviously we're all so much more connected. So even though you need resources, obviously it's a lot easier to get your work out there. Or if not get your work out there, but at least get some exposure for your work compared to before. But it's I feel like I should answer this question after the show and not right before the show when I'm feeling all of the pressure. Yeah.
Well, it does bring up the point of having the show and the challenges during the pandemic as a retailer, that to discover new talent during that time when it was purely a virtual world was really, really difficult. So for young designers coming up in that time in that market, new and even established, is just showing their wares purely screen-based was very, very hard for anybody to make new discoveries, take risks on new designers, to make orders with accounts that they hadn't opened yet, because we were relying on the trust and the relationships we've built over the many years with the brands that we were currently working with. So I think that alone just logistically just became incredibly challenging for anybody to be able to kind of give these very needful and worthy designers a chance.
I think time is a resource as well. Mm-hmm. It's the only resource that cannot be monetized, and I find the demands on designers, even the audiences that they need to talk to, direct to consumer, your web audience, your everything, like that could take up all of your time and leave less for creativity. And one issue of, I don't like the term young designer. I think emerging is a term I prefer. Is I noticed a change around the 2000s when the normal, or the usual, not normal, system of graduating, working for someone else, and then establishing your business once you had contacts has largely fallen away. And so we have many designers that haven't put in the time, which doesn't mean that they shouldn't start, but that the time that it takes to develop, to lose your idols in a way, I think also there's a rush for everyone to start and get in. And I think that's another aspect of time as a resource that we don't talk about.
And Nora, can you tell me a bit about your work with new talent and how that kind of came about, and how you're working with emerging designers?
Yeah, it was just as Ervin said, we realized that the emerging brands and designers, they're having a very tough time finding the good materials that they want. They want to be working with the better materials and the innovative materials, but the innovative materials are usually dependent on scale or trying to find these larger volumes. So what we're trying to do is to work closely with the brands to help them to see what resources they need in terms of the supply chain, because they haven't built the relationships within the producers and so on that the larger brands has. And just as the pandemic have shown, it's the smaller brands that are really affected by the higher prices and the logistic problems. So we need to kind of help them, help us to get the material out there and to be where the smaller designers are as well.
Mm-hmm.
And so many designers say to me, we want to be sustainable, we want to work this way, we can't afford the more sustainable option. So the desire is there, but the accessibility to the materials is not, and that is a hurdle that needs to be cleared at some point.
And the research capacity, and I think it is this materials that you bring up, absolutely. Also access to manufacturing factories, like putting young designers in contact, in touch with factories outside of their immediate geography that can be really, really helpful. And I think the other aspect that I think is very, very challenging for emerging designers is the idea of needing multiple skill sets. Like, it is not enough to be creative. You have to have a fiscal mindset. You have to have an HR component. Like, and it's just too much to ask for a young designer. We see why designers like Marc Jacobs had his Robert Duffy. That these partnerships are needed because the designer needs to be able to focus on things creative, to have the support of another partner that can manage the other aspects of that. And I think that is that kind of division of labor, I think is really, really challenging.
And there's this almost like a paradox there, that as an emerging, talent, there's this expectation that, so you're going to show the most exciting new materials and most exciting new things, but usually those emerging designers like me are the ones who are least connected and kind of least have a foothold in the industry. Right. And it's an interesting, like you say, like just the idea that to have sustainable materials, you need to make a lot is completely backwards, because from a consumption point of view, we should be making less. So it doesn't make any sense that you need to order kilometers after kilometers of a certain material to be able to produce it. Just as one example.
Yes.
Mm-hmm. And so if we're talking about incubating talent and emerging designers, I think a lot of it also lies with education. So, I talk to so many designers all the time who have been creative in university, but then have not really been equipped with kind of practical know-how, accounts and things like that, which is, for me, I think is a big struggle for a lot of them coming out and, not really having a clue. I'm wondering, was this something you kind of picked up, or was it something you were taught, Ervin?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, kind of after graduating from my master's, I sort of realized that it really, we're taught to be designers in like a junior position, basically. At least that was my experience, that you're taught to, how should I say this? Well, let's put it this way. I don't feel that like I would graduate with like exactly like the business know-how and like all just like practical like production things, like how you might have those these amazing ideas and you do like couture level materials and constructions, but you might not be able to do that anywhere like at a factory, so just this sort of like practical how to get things done. And I at least speaking from my point of view, from graduating from Aalto in Finland, I feel like, you know, there's great creatives and great designers that graduate from there, but they graduate to be kind of then led by someone else, not to lead their own brand or kind of lead their own creative vision, I think.
I think there's great value in what we do as creatives, as artists, as artisans, in being an apprentice, like graduating from school, having that developed aesthetic sense of self, and then working with somebody who has experience in the industry, is running a viable business. And I think bringing your creative aspects to that while you're learning how to operate. I think the operations aspect of it, I think, is really challenging for emerging designers. And I think apprenticing and learning and really, it's almost like stepping back and still having that real hunger to be a designer, but recognizing that there are a lot of more tools in the toolbox I need to develop before I'm ready to do my own. Because to be a viable brand, as Ervin's saying, it requires a lot of masteries of skills. So I fully support the idea of having mentors and really, really apprenticing.
And if I can add, what I really kind of like what you say is this idea of like apprenticing and mentorship, because it's completely different than having an internship position at a big brand where you have these preordained tasks that might not, they don't necessarily nurture your specific talent. And I'm not saying all experience is important.
We're candle makers when you come down to it. I love to refer to it as we're candle makers, and the skill is lost if it's not brought down generation after generation. Like every aspect of it. I think we have to look at it as simplistically as that. Like we inhabit and own these skills that are very, very specific to our industries. And I think to be working with a master or somebody who'd been expert or in the field for a long time, but master craftsmen, I think these master tailor, just absolutely invaluable. And then how have they made it through the test of time, the business challenges over the years, because those are things they've weathered, and that is knowledge they can absolutely share and enlighten with people working with them.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that this rush for newness and discovery is sometimes at the detriment of the talent, because I mean, the question is, I think, do we ask too much of designers? Can someone be a left brain and a right brain? There are only 24 hours in the day.
Yes.
And one thing, having covered the Scandinavian market, especially in Stockholm, a lot of the brands are duos or trios. They happen to often have gone to school together, but it's often friends working together. There's a collective approach, which seems to me so much healthier, because one person is one person, and I worry that the creatives don't even have time to be creative because they have to do everything else. And that's what we need them to, for us to grow, for us to see new things and new directions. They need to be able to give their time and passion to what they have inside of them. And I just worry that the clock is just ticking, and creative becomes the last thing that there's time for.
And Bruce, how do you kind of work with emerging designers at Bergdorf and Neiman Marcus? And what do you kind of look for in terms of emerging talent and
For
people
sure,
that you want to work
that's a
with?
great question, and it's something that I personally have like reassessed over the last couple of years, because I think that I've been at Bergdorf for 8 years. My background is in journalism. I've grown up working in magazines and menswear specifically, and in journalism my entire editorial career, and moved into retail about 8 years ago. So I have a very strong editorial point of view. I was very aware of a lot of what was happening out in the market with new designers. It was very much an interest and a curiosity of mine. I think what we've developed over the last few years is taking more of a step and recognizing that we have a responsibility as merchandisers, as buyers, as retailers, to do more than just preview a line, decide if it's right for us or not, and then write an order or move on. I think we've recognized that we have a responsibility to work more closely with brands that we think could benefit from our help, could use the factory and connections that we may have awareness or information regarding. Mentoring with designers and, maybe taking time, and maybe the order doesn't get placed then, but we're working with them and talking to them about what we need, what we can help with, where we can kind of, what as a retailer, what we're working on, and what the intersection between us can look like. But I think there's a lot more generosity for that, and I think it's changed a lot, that it's not just this transactional relationship anymore. There's a lot of development that's a part of it that I really, really love.
And same, Nora, like how are you working with new talent, with the talents, and what do you look for in the people that you're, selecting for the initiative?
I mean, I fully agree that we've also realized and changed over the years of how we do this. And we talk a lot about collaboration within fashion industry, and we need collaboration to be able to shift it. And it all comes down to what's driving the market. And we see that it's the emerging designers. For us, it's the emerging designers that are driving demand for sustainability, and they're so close to the consumers, and they have this relationship and they have this view of sustainability that not a lot of the larger brands has, and that's something that we want to promote and to be able to support. So we work with all kind of different brands, and in the same way, it's about